which, by the way, every aspiring entrepreneur, whether they want to sell their business or not, should have a sellable business. That should be, you should do the job you want to do, not be stuck, incarcerated by the job you have to do.
Welcome to the Levership Podcast. I'm Chris Johnson, the CEO of Levership, and I've got Matt Symes here with me, the CEO of Simplicity Designs. Today, we want to talk about the fact that as a small business, there are limited dollars to invest, and talking about how one should think about those investments as you kind of think about calculating return and such. Help us get that started, Matt. We think about various types of investments. Let's just go through them. Let's just ground on that.
Well, so you got capital investments where you're investing in machines or equipment or technology, whatever it happens to be. And then you have investments in people where you're investing in salaries and training and that kind of stuff. And then one that gets missed all the time is investing in process improvement, investing in letting or getting your processes to give you more for less and making them faster, better with less resources, if you will. So, there's some core investments here, and the capital ones are easy to see. They're the vehicles you buy. They're the big pieces of equipment.
Touch them.
Yeah, you can touch them. You put your arms around them. And generally, when you go to make that type of investment, it has resale value, and you pay it off over 3 to 7 years, and you hope it pays back over, depending on what kind of piece of equipment it is, but longer than the 3 to 7 years you're paying it off.
Yeah.
Right. So this is why capital is so easy to get your head around. The people one, we've been socialized to, the classic CEO, CFO conversation, right? Like, what happens if we train them and they leave? And CEO responds, what happens if we train them and they stay?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So this, or don't train them and they stay. Yeah. So the whole idea of, do we invest in our people and their skills? Okay. So that's one. And that has a higher degree of risk because a piece of equipment does not have legs.
Yeah.
Whereas people do, and they have choices, right? And the average person will work in somewhere between 5 and 15 jobs over the course of their career. Okay. So they're likely to walk. Then there's the process improvement one. And the process improvement one is the one that is really hard for owners to get their head around.
Thinking about investing in an outside organization to come and help you. So buying knowledge service, things like that.
Exactly.
It's harder to think about the long-term return or quantify it that way.
Well,
when you're looking at the cost of a third-party consulting firm or something like that to come in, right? Is that where you're going with that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're looking at investing in a way to make your strategic process better. So the way you make decisions, you're looking at making an investment in how certain ones of your processes actually operate. So does my sales process get me the number of leads, and do I convert at the right speed? So I might make an investment to increase number of leads and decrease time to conversion and increase conversion rate. And a lot of people confuse process improvement with technological investment, right? So there's invest in Salesforce. Salesforce is only as good as the process it enables.
Yeah.
Like all the other CRMs.
Interestingly enough, that being the hardest one to get around, in your journey, you've seen the most gains of any of the potential investments directly in process and strategy.
Yeah. I mean, look, everywhere you look, there is opportunity to do things faster, better with less resources. There's opportunity everywhere. And normally, if you distill an organization down, you solve a problem for a client, you solve that problem through a series of capabilities, and those capabilities are enabled by people and technology. Okay. So if you dissect any business like that, your capabilities, what are the core processes? What's the engine of your organization, the heartbeat of your organization that delivers that value? And every part of what you're doing to deliver that value can be done faster, better with less resources. And so, we worked with one organization and they changed 4 of those over the course of a year.
4 processes.
4 processes. Okay. That's it. 4 processes over the course of a year. Okay. $5 million organization, 4 processes over the course of a year, increased their net profit 900% by changing those 4 processes. There was not a truck or a person that guy could have bought to get him the same return.
But we'd never look at it.
No.
And then beyond that, if you anchor in those process improvements, like you're going to gain on those annually, right? That's maybe the silly part about what you're saying, right?
Everything else depreciates with value. This should appreciate with value. It should be like fine wine, quite frankly. If you anchor them in with good continuous improvement, et cetera. And look, I'll give you an example of one of those processes, because people think about process, they think about bureaucracy. No, I'm talking about a process that enables you to drive more value per minute spent in the business. So one of them was around his KR process, so his key relationship process. The industry he's in offers a whole bunch of types of jobs, just like the industry you're in, I'm sure. Offers you a whole bunch of types of jobs and types of clients. He got really specific about which type of jobs he wins on. Then from there, he got really specific about who are the ideal customers that have those jobs. Now, with my key relationship process, how do I become meaningful to those people when they're making decisions on who gets those jobs? So by doing that hard work up front and then going, okay, I'm going to get really intentional about being important for these 12 people.
Yeah, thinking about a previous episode that you did around customer mix.
That's right.
Who are you really great at delivering for? And, and not every dollar is the same, and really focusing on that creates so much more impact than any piece of equipment that you could buy.
Well, that's setting up the game in the right way. So let's get the ideal customer mix. And then once you have that, you can really understand, how do I sell to it? So if you get that done, you got to think, this is a key relationship process. You're going, well, that's just a relationship management process. Yes, it is just that. And it is just that most business owners are not doing. They are not changing form, fit, or function of how they intentionally manage the relationships that matter. And as a result, they are caught managing the jobs they shouldn't have taken instead of the relationships they should be nurturing to get better jobs. It's a totally different focus, right? So, and this is just one process, one of the four. He changed his key relationship process to be intentional about how he nurtured the relationships that mattered so he could be considered for the jobs that are ideal. And as a result of that, he made the game he was playing much easier, right? So this whole thing is about investing in the processes that matter most to your business. And normally it's not going to be a piece of equipment. Now I get it. A piece of equipment has resale value. Okay, so I can touch it. It has resale value. There's something secure in that. But it's not going to give you the biggest ROI per dollar invested in your business.
Why is that where we're at? Why do we equate so much comfort in a resale value or a tangible capital investment?
I mean, look, we're programmed that way, right? Like the bank will finance a truck.
Yeah.
They're not going to finance a KR process.
Yeah.
Right.
Fair.
So, I mean, maybe they'll give you some working capital to invest in it, whatever it happens to be, but the bank can get their hands on it. So we're pre-programmed as a society that investments mean tangible things.
Yeah.
Whereas I would argue that you'll get more benefit from investing in the skills of your people, and you'll get that much more benefit, even more so, from investing in the core processes. Because once you invest in the core processes, you understand what skills you need to invest in. Then I can invest in those skills, and then you understand the technology and the capital that enables it, right? So we're just
actually
doing
the other way around.
Yeah, we're doing this backwards.
The other way around. Wow. The other backing out to what to invest in. There's also the when, right? And we often run into entrepreneurs that are on, let's say, the second half of the journey, and they're starting to think about the exit day, and they're starting to think about, how do I look? Does the bottom line look? And the last thing that comes to mind is to invest in improving your processes, or getting into strategy, aligning your leadership. You're so fixated on that bottom line and whatever multiplier your industry will get you that you don't think about that. But we've talked a lot over the years about investing in the middle of the P&L and being able to show that it's not a permanent investment. You can normalize it. Like what advice could you give somebody that's on the second half of the journey that's reluctant to invest in a process at this point in the journey.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing, I mean, you're talking about normalizing a P&L so that you can see your investments, so that you can tell a potential buyer, look, when you're judging my business, take those out. Here's the EBITDA we could have achieved.
Exactly. Yeah.
And look, anybody's going to exit their business. I think you should be thinking about this 7 to 10 years before you're going to leave the business, right? I mean, you got a series of investments that you need to make, both from a capital standpoint, a process standpoint, a people standpoint. What are those investments, and let's get ready to make them, because anybody who's going to buy your business is going to look at 3-year trending financials. They're going to want to know the financial health, they're going to want to know the customer health, and they're going to want to know that you have the team in place that can deliver to those customers to sustain the financial health. Nobody wants to buy a business that they have to then have a shitty job for. So first and foremost. So if I take that premise and then I turn around and I go, okay, in order for this business to be sellable, which, by the way, every aspiring entrepreneur, whether they want to sell their business or not, should have a sellable business. That should be, you should do the job you want to do, not be stuck, incarcerated by the job you have to do. All right. So let's get to building that business that you want to. Now, what investments do you need to make in order for this business to be self-sustaining in a thriving way? Right. So that's the question that you got to ask yourself. And then from there, you'll distill it down to the investments that you need to make. I am always really clear with people on their financials, and most entrepreneurs don't actually understand their financials. They kind of get a report back from their accountants, and there's a single line that says like wages. Well, how many of those wages were direct labor to deliver? How many of those wages were attributed to the marketing and sales effort to land the client?
Yeah.
How much of these wages are to the enabling functions, HR, finance, etc.? And how much of these wages went into driving improvement in your organization? And that's the one that I really want to see. I want to be able to carve that out. And most people are making these investments all over the place. They just aren't conscious about them. They aren't qualifying them. They aren't capturing them in some way to see in their P&L. Okay, I know that is a little bit convoluted for some people who are looking on here, but at the end of the day, what I want to make clear is, can you see the amount of investment you're making in the business from capital standpoint, people standpoint, hires, training, etc., process standpoint? If you're not investing somewhere around 20 cents on the dollar, you're probably not investing at the clip that you need to invest. And that should be a startling statement for some businesses.
Yeah, I think you'd find that a lot of businesses aren't, right? And they're letting the world around them take them where they go versus really, controlling what they can control and continue to improve.
I think what's interesting about that is, I think what you'll see is that they are investing that amount, but they don't know they are, and they're unintentionally spraying the investment because they have a bunch of people working on a bunch of road projects that they don't even know about, that are spending cycles that they didn't even know they were investing in, right? And this is why we always talk about getting into a really, really good strategic cadence. So you're consciously and intentionally making decisions on what to focus the improvement on. Then you'll sort out whether it's process, people, or capital. And then you can actually see the investment you're making, which is one of the most important arguments for having a formalized approach to making strategic decisions. Because you're not just chasing yesterday's problem, starting more projects than you can finish, investing a whole bunch of time and money in shit that doesn't get done or give your business value.
When you talked about sustainable business, when you think about the second half of the journey and the exit, what is more sellable than a business that doesn't require you to be there every minute? But what is more enjoyable, perhaps, as an entrepreneur, is a business that doesn't require you to be there every minute. So it's not value just in the exit. It's quality of life while you're still there.
Look, best life. I talk to entrepreneurs about this all the time, right? I had a guy who backed in to a $50 million a year home building business. And he was suffering from the tyranny of having to be the chief operating officer and head of finance and all that kind of fun stuff that he had sort of convinced himself he had to do. said, look, like, what's your best life? And he said, Matt, I love to landscape. Kind of took me back from like landscaping. So yeah, I love like the design of the landscape, et cetera. I'm like, well, then let's set your business up so that you can do landscaping. Like,
Yep.
there's no reason you can't be the majority shareholder. You can't be in the room as a either chair of the board or the CEO. And there's no reason you can't then spend 40% of your time landscaping if that's what lights you up. Now, landscaping to me sounds like just about the worst thing you could force me to do. But for him, this is what he wanted to do. So over the course of 6 months, we just re-engineered the people in the business because his business wasn't formal enough that he could hand over the reins of that. But once it got formal, by the time we got to month 6, we're making strategic decisions. He's fully involved in them. We have clear 90-day sprints. And now when he goes to work in the business, he can work wherever he lights him up. But if you don't get formal about that, you can't make that decision. So what I want is an entrepreneur who is delighted, charged, energized by what they have to go in and do every day. And it's what they get to do every day. I know I use the word have to, it's what they get to do every day, right? So whether you want to set your business up to sell or whether you want to set your business up to serve your best life, all of those things are possible if you get really intentional about what you're building and what you're doing to build it, and then who owns what part of that business. Then we can get to this thing we're talking about investment. Sure, we're going to invest on building the processes. We're going to invest in bringing in the people that do the stuff I don't like, which, by the way, people who like to do stuff you don't like are better at it, right? And then I can invest in the capital. And look, between there, I can find the funding for it. And there's a whole bunch of creative people who can fund and finance any one of those investments. It's easy to finance capital. So people resort to that.
I'm really glad you went there in that example, because I'm sure there's people listening that are doing a job as leading their business, doing the job that they're not excited about getting up in the morning. And you just walk through an example of how a real life example of how someone who was being tortured by their business actually changed the game. They stepped back and set up the game differently so they could actually do the work they love doing and still prosper from the business. It's not that you can have both.
You can.
You can have both, but so many people just don't realize that that opportunity is there, and they drudge through the role that they think they need to play as a majority shareholder, right?
Yeah, and my hope is that business owners stop subjecting themselves to that tyranny. There's no need to, right? I mean, you're putting in countless hours doing shit you don't like to do, away from your families, basically incarcerated by your business instead of building the business that serves your best life. Now, the only way that you build a business that serves your best life is by getting really intentional about the engine of the business and making sure that you've invested in it working without you.
Sustainable without you being there every minute. Awesome. Awesome. If you want to learn more about Levership, jump over to levership.com or hit us up on LinkedIn. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you enjoyed this episode and want to help us grow, please share it with your friends and colleagues. This would mean the world to us.